Hi, I'm Ryan McNamara with Maroon TV. I'm sitting here today with Mike Viola of the very good Slate at U Chicago, and he's running for president of student government for the upcoming elections. So Mike, first off, just tell me a little bit about Very Good Slate and your platform.
All right, so the Very Good Slate, it's composed of very good people with some very good ideas. Our main focuses are RSO support, community building, increased transparency for SG, and more affordability and sustainability on campus.
Tell me a little bit about more affordability and sustainability. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so as for the affordability aspect, there are a lot of big problems facing students, particularly students who are on the meal plan or in housing, because the way the university works, sometimes that's the most affordable option. But there are a lot of gaps that don't really cover those people. So for instance, there's the Saturday night meal issue. Say $100 Maroon dollars per quarter doesn't always satisfy students' needs on Saturday nights. So we're really looking into finding other ways to include those people. One development that I had this year was a big interest on the part of members of U Chicago Dining in instituting a cheap $3 buffet on Saturday nights that any student can participate in, probably in one of the coffee shops. Another big issue is Saturday night house activities. So for instance, in my house, if a student feels that they aren't in a position to pay for a Saturday or weekend house activity, my RHs are very generous with subsidizing it for them. But in a lot of houses, that isn't the case. So a lot of low-income students can't really participate in a lot of the base parts of house culture, which is very difficult. If you start your first year off like that, not being able to participate with housemates in sort of the things that are supposed to be the defining feature of your first year at Chicago, I could see one feeling very alienated. And it's sad that there's such inconsistency across the house system as to, how they include those students. So we would like to see a more robust, I don't want to say centralized, but a more standardized means of subsidizing students who can't afford house activities.
So how would you go about, identifying the students that would need these options more than others? Would you actually go in and look on a case-by-case basis, or would it be, honor-based? Someone kind of says, hey, I can't really afford to get dinner tonight, could I have some help? How would you go about policing that? Because that is a system that could be abused.
Right. Oh,
by some people.
In my house currently, it's the honor system, which hasn't been a problem. Of course, since it could be a completely private matter between the students and university staff, hypothetically, it could very well, we could very well find a way to use demonstrated need as, say, appears on, college aid documentation as sort of the standard for that. But that's a specific that we haven't worked out. There's lots of conversations that would need to have been had with administrators to figure that out. But nevertheless, we have no doubt that some reasonable system could come out of this.
And so you also mentioned transparency is a big issue that you guys are really focused on. I read on your website that you're considering, town halls, office hours, meetings. How do you plan on generating student interest in such events? How do you plan on spreading the word and ensuring that students actually come out so that their opinions can be heard and that they can engage in discussion with you guys?
All right, so you brought up the town halls. That's a great example. This year, I planned our first town hall, at least in recent memory, our first town hall of, the people currently involved in SG, regarding the stipend issue. That was at the IOP, which we thought was a very interesting location, but we think rotating locations would be a great way to bring more people into the fold, and having, say, 2 or 3 town halls a quarter, hold them in various different places around campus. I'd say that's a great way to pull people in. For a good town hall, though, you need to have legitimate interest on SG. So when we had that stipend town hall, the current executive slate refused to show up, which is a very unacceptable and unacceptably unaccountable position to take. At an event meant to deal with SG's defining issue of the quarter. But nevertheless, after that, other members of SG planned a second town hall last quarter that primarily dealt with climate surveys, etc., which was very well attended. That was at ONSA, and I frankly see that sort of system as snowballing because every time we've had one, we've had great interaction with the audience. We learned a whole lot from people. They felt like they learned a whole lot from us. And that was something that had really been missing on SG, I would say, for the last couple of years. Our attempts at outreach previously were mostly in the forms of study breaks, which, sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. It all depended on how big of an interest people had in being there. Sometimes people come in and take a bunch of cookies and leave. Sometimes they sit and chat for hours. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of transparency and outreach. Nevertheless, there are more efforts that need to be made on the part of SG. We believe that the executive slate should, be held to the bylaws that they need to publish minutes of every meeting. We think we should be holding meetings in a public space and not in the basement of Reynolds Club, in a room that only a few people know the code to get into. Mm-hmm. We believe our budgets should be posted online. We shouldn't be, the executive slate should not be spending unaccountably out of a six-figure executive budget, stuff like that.
So you mentioned the stipend issue, and now there's a recent proposal to give stipends to RSO leaders. I know you mentioned you guys are really big on helping RSOs, especially, budding RSOs that may be experiencing growing pains. It's very hard to get an RSO off the ground, as I'm sure you know. So I guess what's your opinion on the stipend issue, and then follow up to that, how do you plan on helping these sort of, new growing RSOs?
So here there's sort of two separate issues. I assume first you're referring to the recent revamped stipend plan. That we tentatively support. The thing is we would like some sort of guarantee that the students who receive the funding that a large proportion of them are on we think actually maybe the 50% margin, like a minimum of half the students who apply or who receive the stipends need to be on A. We think that might actually be a low bar. And we would also like to find some way to ensure that the committee of students has some sort of staff oversight, and that they some way to ensure that they come from very different, activity backgrounds, that, people cannot collude to give it to their friends. But, if we came up with some sort of safeguard, we'd be fine with that proposal. We think it's smart and accountable.
What sort of safeguard do you have in mind, or have you thought that through yet?
We've thought about it a little. It could be students from different categories of RSOs, like, this many students from, cultural or interest RSOs, this many students from advocacy RSOs. We could try out proposals. That's probably something that's going to need to be discussed in a larger environment. Mm-hmm. But other than certain things, you also mentioned new RSOs, right, fundraising. So at the moment, SGFC, the Student Government Funding Committee, does not fund fundraisers. That's understandable for big RSOs, we think. And we think it's understandable for fundraisers that would be sending money off campus. But we don't understand why SGFC would think it doesn't have an interest in helping small or new RSOs get off the ground. So we are really pushing to repeal that. We hope to maybe even create some sort of RSO incubation plan, where, say, in the first year or two, an RSO has access to a certain pot of money specifically to fund, small-scale fundraisers. Because as it stands, this is also sort of an affordability issue. If you just founded a new RSO, you need to be comfortable shelling out some of your own money to fund your fundraiser and hope you make enough to, get yourself reimbursed through Reynolds Club and make enough money for your club to get off the ground. So like if you don't sell those cupcakes, like you're out of luck, and it's that can be very difficult for students. A lot of people don't want to make that risk. A lot of people would love to found clubs, but aren't really in a position to be wagering their personal funds.
Right.
So that's sad at the moment, and we would really like to move in a different direction.
Changing focus a little bit, how does your slate feel about the recently passed UPass program?
Regarding the UPass, we believe that referendum was the right way to handle the issue. We each had different views on whether or not the most people would benefit from it. At the end of the day, if the majority of students deemed it useful, when they consider how much their student life fee is covered, etc., then there's no reason not to pass it. And you know what, in the future, if the student body judges that they're really not getting out of it what they thought they were, then maybe there can be an effort to repeal it. That would be beyond our time on campus. In fact, while our slate is on campus, or while our slate is in office, if God willing we're elected, UPass would not be in effect.
Right.
So that's not an immediate effect. That's not immediately something that we can judge.
So again, a little focus shift, a little more personal. Tell me a little bit about your own previous experience. Leadership positions. What did you accomplish in these positions, and what did you learn that you can bring to the president position?
Mm-hmm. While I've been at UChicago, I've been class rep since our first year. My second year, I was the chair of college council, and so there I served on a lot of really interesting committees while I was on SG. One very big project that we did that I'm really proud of is the One Campus project. So that was inaugurated last year. It was proposed by a member of the class of 2016, Sindhu Nanasamadan. She came to college council and said, I have this amazing idea, let's plan this enormous staff appreciation day. We'll have a big lead up, we'll have people taking photos with their posters about who and what they're most thankful for from the staff, from non-academic staff that is. We talked to so many people across campus, so many people from dining, from facilities, from transportation, Allied Barton Security, the UCPD, and so then we had this phenomenally successful event last May, where 600-something students and staff showed up to share meals together. Mm-hmm. Then last quarter, we hosted a students versus UCPD basketball game, which about 100 people came to. And that's something that we're looking forward to doing in the future. I've also served on the Campus Dining Advisory Board. Mm-hmm. So on there, I was involved in changing things like the dining hall hours. We extended them half an hour last year because a lot of clubs tend to end on the hour, not on the half hour, and people who get out of meetings at 8, might just coincidentally go hungry one night. I served with Hollywrap, we initiated the student discount program our first year. We got discounts from a million different places, including Harold's Chicken. That was our big achievement we thought of the year. Outside of SG, I've served on Alpha Phi Omega, which is a community service fraternity, with the Homeless Food Run. I was my house treasurer, member of College Republicans, starting this year. So yeah, I've done quite a bit here and there, but I would say our proudest, or at least my proudest achievements were definitely on SG.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you stopping by, and best of luck to you in the upcoming elections.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was really fun.